Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to be discussing where you can find bitumen in the ground, which you can find everywhere on Earth. A hint to bitumen in the ground once you start digging under a certain depth is blue clay. Blue clay is the initial coating of the upper layer of bitumen that's present in the oil's crust. Which means now if you were to dig anywhere in the world and you arrive to blue clay, which is of a bluish grayish color, if you arrive at this particular level in the Earth's crust, if you dig, say, slightly deeper again, you then arrive to bitumen, which is the black tar that is then condensed into mineralization based on the chemical reaction of heat. As the bitumen moves inside the Earth's core, the leftover gas remains create the layer known as the blue clay, which is the mineralization of the emission of those gases, which is then neutralized by salt water. If you were to look at the ocean, for example, you can find blue clay present all along the bottom of the Earth's surface at the base of the oceanic bottom. But now you also see this particular bitumen found all throughout the entirety of the Earth. All it took was simply somebody to dig down to a certain length, which means you as an oil or landowner now could technically dig anywhere in your land and you could hit oil. The problem now is there's legislation in being a landowner, because you see now they have found a way of controlling that, which they limit you as a landowner from being able to dig more than a meter below your surface. Why is that? Well, that legislation was specifically put in place because they wanted to limit everybody's ability from being able to essentially find that bitumen is everywhere in the world. It's simply if you dig that you find it. And so now we see the rise of fool's gold, because all of these rich men that had all of these oil reserves for thousands of years of accumulation, well, now we see that every man and every woman, if you were to dig deep enough, even in your own backyard, you could find bitumen. So what is the problem here? Well, they limited everybody's ability from being able to create their own wealth. Only the few that got to control the world essentially got to say, we get to hold the money and you guys get to pay for us. But now, we know the bitumen is present the moment you encounter blue clay in the Earth's crust, which requires typically about 3 feet worth of digging in Alberta. And so, once you dig 3 feet in Alberta, you arrive to blue clay. And then if you dig slightly deeper, well then guess what? You arrive to bitumen, which is very rich in Alberta. And it's also very rich in other places in the world, because we are at a key point where in the Earth's crust, according to how the magician stirs the pot, you could say. Imagine if I'm holding a vial of a round base, just like the sphere of the Earth. And now I ignite a fusion, a heat source known as the sun. And as I rotate, I also rotate the vial in a pattern of diagonal axis change. What this does is it creates chemical reactions within the Earth's core because of this heat, And this heat releases gas, which the gas then gets stabilized by water, the oceanic level. And this gas essentially then creates carbon monoxide. It transfers carbon monoxide into carbon dioxide the moment you introduce it in contact with salt water, which now created the ability for the earth to generate life, green life, absorbing the carbon dioxide, which then resulted in oxygen being put back into the air. And now we saw the rise of wildlife within the oceanic levels enter the terrestrial level, where we now are present on top of the Earth's crust in order to survive. The moment we dig back deep into our roots, into the crust, well, then we get to the cake. And I don't know about y'all, but that sweet cake, that money, that's about to drop those gas prices, because we've just realized we've been lied to and we have been scammed. Scammed. For how long? If you are a landowner, I invite you to go anywhere on your property, start digging, and let me know once you get to the blue clay, because you might just become one of the next wealthy people on the planet. But now, who owns the land? Ooh, that's a good question. Who owns the land? Because see, if you're only allowed to dig 1 meter on top of that Earth's crust, that means the rest below is technically owned. And so who bought the core of the Earth? And who has been scamming us? Well, the moment we find out who controls the core is the moment we can discover who controls life. Do you feel that trembling in your chest right now? This is as a result of anxiety, because you are realizing we are being lied to. And you feel this reality, and it is very real. I come from this planet, yet I have to buy myself to stay alive on it. Seems like a good scam, doesn't it? And yet, in the beauty of capitalism is also where you can find your ability to live your dream the moment you decide to take responsibility for yourself. Go out there and conquer. Make a name for yourself. Live your life. And who knows, maybe it'll inspire others to want to achieve the same great height that once you did. But in that idea, you cannot change the world for one person if you cannot change it for everybody else. So to the people of the world, I am actively changing the world for you. To anyone listening, to anyone becoming awake to the lies, you might start seeing now where the money truly lies. Why is it that we're billions or trillions of dollars in debt in order to sustain countries which are perfectly well able to run themselves and generate their own wealth within their own kingdoms, based on this very particular video? And so, what do we do now? Do we revolt? Do we storm the gates? Or do we simply let the elites turn themselves in? Because we are now at a trade point where we could cause an economic shutdown the moment we all together say, I'm not buying your damn oil anymore and you owe me money now because you've scammed me my whole life. And so to these trillionaires of oil kings, payback's a bitch. Because all that money y'all made, it's going back into the pockets of the people. Because we all know who's responsible for the scam. And so, we've waged war in order to secure oil. Meanwhile, we could find it everywhere in the world. Whoa. Do you see what happens when God is not present on earth? Humans tend to run rather rampant. It's not an act of control that God is simply here for. It is as an act to remind you that you're here to guard the garden. And it is not your possession, it is mine. And so, I suggest you begin doing the work to sustain this place. If not, the floods will have to come. And that's where we begin, once again, at the character arc of humanity. Where do you see where we can create that change? Because I know a thing about a thing or two. And so welcome to the character arc. I know a thing. So, let's change. Thank you, everyone.